Good afternoon, Board of Directors. This is Mike Bradley. I'm trying a virtual pre-recorded Board of Directors meeting, which may be a stretch to call it a meeting since it is all one-sided. Maybe a diatribe might be a better phrase. Well, thank you for listening to this. I know you all are busy people, which is why I'm recording this, so you can listen to it whatever hour of the day that you want, hopefully while doing something interesting or having a drink in hand. I just wanted to do this. We used to get on the phone about twice a year for an hour at 9 o'clock at night, and I just know how busy people are, and with kids and travel and work. Listen to this whenever you can. You don't even have to necessarily watch it half the time, but I am going to pull up some different screens just to show you some things. But I'll send you this PDF with the agenda and the contact information for the board members. Here's my brief agenda, intros, and goals. Talk about this year, talk about next year. But first of all, thank you. I know I don't ask a lot of you, but the time that you give me, either by talking to nukes or coming to a meetup or coming to a career fair, is very valuable to you. So it's extremely valuable to me. And thank you again for volunteering. One thing I wanted to discuss, a new board member asked, what is my current affiliation? How is it to be summarized? I run this like a nonprofit, but it's not technically a 501c3 for tax purposes. My dad's a CPA, and he said, unless I plan on buying property, unless I want a lot of additional headaches, do not register as a 501c3. He said, have a non-interest-bearing checking account, don't acquire property, don't make too much money, and you'll save a lot of hassle with the IRS and with legal ramifications. I'm part of another nonprofit that we have to have board of directors insurance and all that other stuff. So basically, by me doing it this way, you guys are totally covered. I'm covered, and as long as I don't use this as a slush fund for some other venture, I think we're all fine. But so basically, it's a nonprofit. Next, intros. Yes. So I decided to pull up everybody's LinkedIn pages. And first, here's where everybody's at. We have a smattering across the country. We have actually 2 board members in New York City. We have 2 board members in Raleigh, North Carolina. We did have 2 in Charleston, South Carolina, but our one board member moved to Austin, Texas, which is a pretty cool place to have a board member. We have 1 in Denver now, and there might actually be a second one joining from Denver in the next year or 2. But so you could see a lot of East Coast presence, but it is the Navy, Norfolk, DC, Navy bases. Probably need one up in Seattle. There are a lot of people in Seattle that serve as board members, serve like board members, but aren't technically board members. So without further ado, here's some intros. First board member, Corey Clinton. Corey is the longest standing board member. Corey was my roommate in the pipeline. He was one of the first board members, and all of my first board members were my closest friends that were from the submarine community, from the nuclear community, and it was their intention and my intention that they all replace themselves. Just help me get this off the ground and going, and they have either replaced themselves or I've replaced them, so it's no longer my friend board. It's a board of Navy nukes and different sectors of industry that are many of are becoming my friends or have become my friends, but that wasn't the way it started. But Corey has stayed on because of his interesting profession. Corey is a family practice doctor. He was a JO in Kings Bay with me, and after his sea tour, he went to medical school in New York City, and then he has been a family practice doctor in Philadelphia, and has been to most power conferences speaking to nukes about the possibility of going to medical school, which not many consider, but many that do consider it do very well at it, and it's a very good fit if you have the time and the mental stamina to get back into school. But Corey is currently in Philadelphia, but he's actually moving in the next 2 months back to his wife's hometown in Western Ohio, kind of like Sarah and I did, left the big city heading back to small town. So for now, he's in Philadelphia, and Corey's been a great asset. Actually, we have a junior officer who has, by talking to Corey, decided that medical school was a fit, and he starts medical school in the fall. So that's a success story. Rob Whelan, second board member. Rob, we've known each other for a long time, but he wasn't a board member initially, but he has been the last couple years. Rob and I were JOs in Kings Bay, and then his boat went around the Horn to Bangor. He was on the USS Maine, and Rob he's done a lot of different things. He was with GE, and then did some entrepreneurial stuff. Went to business school, and now is in a really cool space, which is cloud consulting. He had been in Charleston for a long time, where his wife grew up, and he has gone to Austin to get heavy on cloud, and he has also already been featured on AWS's website, and he's gone from 0 to 60 on cloud very quickly. And Rob is a quick learner, and he never stops thinking, and he's been a really good asset to me as far as showing nukes kind of atypical career paths that they should consider. Also, having a really strong network in Charleston where there are plenty of nukes, and there always will be nukes, is also a plus of having Rob on board. Next, Will Lutz out of New York City, actually kind of pretty similar to Rob, very entrepreneurial streak. Will, his claim to fame in the Navy was he was the ship's duty officer during the great Miami fire, USS Miami fire, and he hears about that story probably like once a week. But Will, post-Navy, went to Carnegie Mellon's business school, and that's where we connected, and we have very similar interests, and always challenging our current status quo with regards to what we're doing. Will is up in New York City now. He married a pediatrician that he met in Pittsburgh, and they have one child, and Will has come to a lot of the career fairs. He came to my first career fair, and he's come to 2 or 3 since, and he's come to some meetups as well, and I'm lucky to have Will. Will's buddy Chris Whitley. Chris, I don't know why your picture is so big when you click on it, but you win. Chris, also in New York City. Chris got his MBA while he was on shore duty, and he is doing investment banking for Bank of America Merrill Lynch. And Chris has come to quite a few career fairs. Chris is my default if someone has a question in the financial sector. I'm still not super heavy on investment banking, private equity, the different career paths in the financial sector. So when a new comes to me and says, hey, I'd like to do something in the financial sector in blah, like city, I will often connect them to Chris. Chris has come to a couple meetups, and Chris has come to the career fair. I believe he's coming to the DC career fair this year. So, like I said, Chris is in New York City, and I think he and Will actually get together periodically. So, next board member is Andrew Kahn. Andrew, I met him. Actually, Andrew reached out to me to be helpful, to offer his assistance while he was at business school at UCLA. And anytime anybody does that, that's normally a sign that they're a pretty good guy. Andrew had the lucky chance to come to Hawaii with me a couple times for 2 of my career fairs out there. We don't do a career fair out there anymore because the business model just doesn't make sense. but Andrew has since graduated from business school and is now in San Francisco working for Cisco in a pretty interesting sector. It's not bad to have a nuke in San Francisco. We actually have several nukes in San Francisco, but he's the only board member in San Francisco. And I try to pull Andrew into things on the West Coast, meetups and the Power Conference in Seattle. But yeah, Andrew's been a good asset. Also, Andrew, by nature of his LinkedIn picture, you can tell he's a Nuke SWO. So he'll translate some Nuke SWO stuff for me since I'm a straight up bubblehead. So Paul Karff. Paul is the only member of the board who actually retired from the Navy. And Paul, I believe, is the only member of the board that was enlisted. So Paul started out as enlisted nuke, became an officer, and then within his Navy career, he did a little bit of everything. Did some intel, obviously the nuke stuff, but he got his 20 in. His marriage survived it, and he was one of the, well, I don't know if he was one of the first people at Google, but he's been at Google a long time. He's been at Google since 2006. He's been out to Mountain View and moved around a little bit, been in different sectors of Google, but in the last, I don't know how many years, at least 5, Paul's been in data centers, which is a very nuke-heavy industry. So, and Paul just happens to be the head of the data center in Charleston, South Carolina, or Moncks Corner to be more specific, which is very enviable because there's tons of nukes in Charleston, South Carolina. So when I do events in Charleston, Paul always comes out and helps. And Paul's been up to our DC career fair and also to our Seattle one. So I'm lucky to have Paul. Ironically, Paul's daughter babysat for Rob and his wife Susanna without either knowing that either was a nuke. It was just they were in the same neighborhood, and small world, huh? Speaking of Googlers, Kevin Ryan. Kevin was the first nuke to be hired by Google through one of our career fairs. And when I was looking for board members, Kevin volunteered himself and said, hey, I feel like I could be a good board member because I actually came to one of your career fairs and I got a job through one of your career fairs, which I said, yeah, exactly. That would be awesome. So Kevin has been very gracious with his time. He's in Raleigh, North Carolina, and he is with the Google Fiber team. At one point I had a couple, I think 4 board members who were working for Google, but they were all in different sectors, all in different Navy experiences in different cities. But right now we're at Kevin and Paul. And Kevin just had a baby in the last week, so congratulations, Kevin, for baby Max. Great name. I have a Max as well. So speaking of Raleigh, North Carolina, Lauren is the most female member of the board of directors, the only female. But Lauren has been connected to the Power Conference since the initial one. She was a candidate at the first one, and I remember talking to her at the first one, and she made a great impression, her and her buddy Shannon Willis. And then ever since the first one, Lauren doesn't know this, but she would always get my emails and forward it more than any other person. And MailChimp tells me this. Yeah, she was always very supportive, even though she didn't realize that I knew that she was helping me out by spreading the word and everything like that. So about 2 years ago, I reached out to Lauren and said, hey, any chance you'd be interested in helping out? And she said yes, and she's been great. And she does a lot of veteran help, veteran leadership within her company, which is Thermo Fisher Scientific. She is a pharmaceutical salesperson and is also in Raleigh, which is a great area to have some folks, and that's good to have. And Lauren and Kevin have actually got together outside of career fairs. So next board member is Dan Faraday, one of the famous Faraday brothers. Dan and his brother Dave, both sub-nukes, and both have been very supportive of the career fair since its inception. Dave has never attended a career fair, but he has sent many people my direction, made a lot of contacts, and introduced me to his brother Dan, and Dan has come to the career fair from the career fair, went to Wharton, has come back as Wharton, and is now in Houston doing investment banking, has talked to Nukes about business school, has talked to Nukes about investment banking, and has been a nice asset for me, and will probably continue to either represent Wharton or represent the banking, investment banking, financial sector to transitioning Nukes, or just Nukes in general, I guess. Next board member and new board member, Matthew Roberts. Matthew Roberts came to one of my career fairs and has come to a meetup, and I asked him in the fall if he'd consider being a board member, if he think that'd be okay, new job, married, child, I think, and he said, "Let me check it out," and he got the blessings all around. And Matt's a good guy and has already taught me a couple things that I've gone on to teach Nukes at various events. But Matt is in management consulting, which I believe is a great fit for a Navy Nuke. So I'm glad to have him to be able to say, this is why it's a good fit for Navy Nukes, and this is why I'm doing it. He's also in Denver, which is a great city that Nukes always want to get to. So I haven't asked him to do too much since he's just pretty new as far as helping people that are going to that city or sector of industry. But Matt's going to be a pretty big asset. I believe he's coming to the job fair in August as a board member. So, and last but not least, Patrick Karalikas. Patrick, he's never attended a career fair, but he's come to a bunch of meetups and in Boston, and has been supportive, introducing me to people and sending people to the conference. He also brings he's got the Nuke SWO background, which is nice because Lauren and Andrew are the only other Nuke SWOs on the board. I guess Paul spent some time on the skimmers too. So, but for the most part, it's sub-heavy group. And but Patrick's career I find very interesting. He is the plant engineer at Massachusetts Institute of Technology. So he is the guy that's in charge of keeping the heating systems, the AC, the electrical systems running. He is in charge. He's basically the eng of MIT, and there is this person for every college campus, and it's a kind of closet industry that I never thought of as a good fit for Nukes, but it's a great fit for Nukes. So he can speak to Nukes about his industry, but by nature of speaking to Nukes about this industry, Nukes, if I know them correctly, are going to say, wait a second, what other industries haven't I considered? Because that's a really good fit that no one has ever considered. So I like that aspect of having, and Patrick's a great guy, and I think he'll be a good mentor to these Nukes. And he's also in Boston, which is a city I get questions about all the time. Hey, do you know of anything in Boston? So it'll be great to have Patrick involved, and he is planning on trying to attend the career fair in August as well. So that is the board. Make sure I didn't miss anybody. Corey, Rob, Will, Chris, Paul, Kevin, Andrew, Lauren, Dan, Matt, and Patrick. So these are what I would call the current active board members. There are people that have been board members that have kind of just stopped replying to emails or are too busy because of life or work or whatever, and I haven't tasked them. But if you're on this list, I feel like you've been involved, you want to be involved, and I will continue to ask of your help periodically. So that's the intro. Goals, I'll just talk briefly, like what is the goal of the Power Conference? I just want to have an asset for Nukes as they're transitioning, especially for the non-Service Academy guys that don't have this well-defined network of people that can answer questions for them, because it is an awkward phase of your life, and it was awkward for me, and I just think that having a group of us that maybe not right away, maybe in a week or 2 weeks, could talk to somebody and answer their questions about their field or their city or ideas. I feel like it's a nice way for us all to give back. I also think it puts a microscope on our warfare specialty in a way that says we are an asset to industry and to different companies, and it should be looked at. We are a veteran, but we're a special veteran, and uh, take credit for that, because you look around and you see what nukes are doing out at industry. It's pretty impressive, and we're doing all kinds of things, which is really neat. So, but as far as the business model, we have the 2 career fairs each year. Companies pay $3,500 to come, which for most companies that's not a big deal. They're supporting veterans. They may make a hire or two or get contacts that lead to hires down the line. That's, while not a lot of money for companies, that pays for all of our expenses, that pays for hotels for you guys when you come, that pays for my airfare when I travel to all these different meetup locations, when I go to Guam and Pearl and whatever, and there's a little bit of money left over, so I can have money going into the following year for advertising. Really, the only advertising I'm doing right now is LinkedIn, because everything else has been deemed ineffective and not worth my time. Really, the meetups are also a very good way of advertising. They just take a lot of my time rather than just the money that I'd spend on social media advertising. But so that's kind of the business model there. 2019, I have the schedule on our the website there. So far, I've done all my main meetups. I try to get to every Navy nuke hub once a year. The 2 prototypes, all the bases where there are Navy nukes. I did a luncheon and happy hour in San Diego in January, and then followed that up by flying out to Guam. I didn't go to Guam for the longest time, but I finally have some friends in Guam that have made me understand what Guam is. Guam is so tactical now that there will never not be a submarine presence in Guam. Now, for my Nuke SWO friends listening, I got to Guam via Narita Airport in Tokyo. And while I was in Guam, people said, you should go to Yokosuka. You could talk to the carrier folks that are stationed there on the carrier that I can't remember which one it is, but then also the submarine watch floor folks that are there, because no one ever goes there. There's lots of nukes there. You should do some meetups there. And I'm literally flying through Japan to get to Guam each year, so I could add a day or two in Yokosuka, but I've never been to Yokosuka, so maybe Andrew or Lauren, if you still have contacts, that might be helpful if I want to add a Yokosuka meetup in 2020. So, and Andrew, if you want to come along, that could be cool. Anyway, so then I go to Pearl. I used to have a full-fledged career fair in Pearl. It was amazingly beautiful. It was, everything about it was perfect, except the fast boats were always deployed. And I thought there was enough staff there to have a career fair regardless if 10 of the 16 boats were deployed, but in reality there's not as much staff as you'd think, and it's not 10, it's like 12 boats deployed, so you're having a whole career fair for the people that are back at PNEO. It wasn't a good equation, and I lost a lot of street cred with the companies when they'd fly out and there wouldn't be that many people there. So now I go there myself. I meet with whoever's in port. I answer as many questions. I gather resumes if people have them to share, and then I forward them back to the companies and save the companies the time, because time is more important to them than money. But so then I do a Kings Bay Jacksonville meetup. Last year that went really well, because I went up to Kings Bay and just one of the strip malls up there. Just I did lunch there, and then I did an evening thing at Fernandina. And I'll talk about Kings Bay and Charleston later, but I think those places are ripe for their own career fair. I in that loop, I go to Atlanta as well, because Atlanta always has a nuke presence there as far as civilians, lots of civilians, nuke civilians that or nukes that are now civilians in Atlanta. and so they all come out. There's always a couple at Georgia Tech, ROTC, and then some of my main companies, they have a presence in Atlanta. Georgia Pacific is there. McKinsey's there. McKinsey's not technically a company there, but they have a presence there. Uh, Southern Company, Booz Allen has an office there. There's just a lot of stuff in Atlanta, and it's not that far out of the way. This year, for the first time, I went to Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Portsmouth, there seems to always be 4 or 5 submarines in Portsmouth. I didn't realize there were that many. I thought it was 1 or 2, but I guess just LA classes that are still around, they're breaking. The Virginia classes and the Seawolf classes are going there for overhauls. So, and nukes in the shipyard are bored and bitter, and I think that's going to be a standard event now, going up to Portsmouth once a year, because Portsmouth is not that far from Boston, where I've always had historically nice meetups in Boston, just being a big city, and there's always nukes at HBS, so that's a nice meetup. New London, I did lunch dinner there. Both were nice. I could do lunch dinner 2 days in a row, but I try to do this in a week. So I'd have to do like Portsmouth on Sunday night, or if I'd want to get back by, because I try not to have any meetups on Friday, because I think Friday is a day that's not a good day to do a meetup. But and a meetup's just you go to a bar and we all, or bar/restaurant. I get a bunch of appetizers and food, and then people sit around and drink beer and ask me questions. And it's not, for these ones, like the New London one, where I get a lot of people. It's nice having a board member. So like Will Lutz came up the one year and helped me out there, or in Charleston, Paul Karff and Lauren came down one time, and Rob has come out to those. So um, I can handle 8 to 10 on my own, but once it gets to 14 to 16, it really helps to have another body, because I feel like I don't do those people a service if it's just me answering questions for a group of almost 20. So Saratoga, there's a much smaller shift eng presence in Saratoga than there's ever been. They're kind of ramping down MARF, and if you're going to go to prototype, it used to be 50-50. Now it's almost looking like 2/3 Charleston, 1/3 Saratoga. So I'll continue to go up to Saratoga, but I don't think going forward it's going to have as much of a presence as it used to. And then I do I do Annapolis, but I don't push it real hard, because I don't want the Naval Academy to get too ticked off, because the Power Conference really is very similar to their Service Academy Career Conference. So I don't want to steal too much thunder from them, but there are a lot of transitioning nukes and retiring nukes in Annapolis. So I try to go there at least once a year, and I've been combining it with Norfolk. Norfolk has so much of a presence with the carriers and the subs. I probably should do 2 days down there like I do in Pearl or in Charleston, but right now I've just been doing one because of just timing. So I'm heading up to Bangor Bremerton in June. I just booked my tickets the week of the 23rd of June, and I'll probably do 2 days. I'll probably do happy hour, then lunch, then happy hour again, and go out onto the Kitsap Peninsula, probably Poulsbo or Silverdale, and do something out there. And that is as much answering questions for transitioning nukes as it is advertising for the career fair in November. Just to let people know that this will be coming. This could be a really nice asset. And the career fair in DC is a business day. It's a Friday. It's basically 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And if you're coming, you probably have to take leave or have to like live in DC. But it's worked out well because DC is so easy to get to. People from Norfolk can drive up. If you take leave and come down from New London, you can come down Thursday night and go there on Friday. And whereas the Seattle career event is on a Wednesday night after working hours, 1600 to 2100, and it is close to the sub bases in this cool town called Bainbridge. So the nukes, unless you have duty, you have no excuse not to come to it. It's right there, great companies, great networking, a lot of good advice in this cool art museum. So if you have the opportunity to come up to our career fair in Bainbridge, it's not convenient for people traveling in. You got to either work remotely for a day or two, or take a day off. But it really is great at getting the candidates to attend. So and then that takes us back to 2020. So that's our 2019, and kind of the year like I see it moving forward. I've gotten a pretty good routine. Um, the meetups make me feel good about what we do at, because I really feel like I'm helping these folks when I go to these meetups, because they have lots of questions and they're very uncertain about what else out there, and often it leads to introductions to other nukes, and they're very thankful. So that's 2019. It takes us through 2019. 2020, there's two possible curveballs. Um, the first is a Bradley family curveball. I think this December into January, Sarah and I are going to take our kids and go to Puerto Rico for about 4 or 5 weeks. Probably right after Christmas through mid-January, maybe even through January. Um, Sarah studied in Puerto Rico. We've been down there a bunch of times. I want my kids to see it, and I don't want them to have to miss too many days of school. So we're combining with Christmas break and some of the holidays in January. And then I also have in the back of my mind a possible nonprofit, maybe in a year or two, involving taking East Coast businesses and allowing people to telecommute in Puerto Rico during January, February, March, basically after hurricane season, as a way to experience new culture and drive money into the Puerto Rican economy, escape the northern winter. And Sarah's going to be my guinea pig. So I'm going to see if she can do it for 4 or 6 weeks, working from Puerto Rico. And I think the boys and I are going to do some volunteer work while we're down there. So that would push, if you look at our schedule from 2019, if I'm in Puerto Rico, through mid-January, I'm not going to be in Guam in mid-January, so it might push everything back a month. So that's the first thing. Secondly, I think Charleston and Jacksonville are at the stage where they could have their own career fair, just like we do in Seattle. After working hours, close to the nukes, do it a Tuesday, Wednesday type thing. The problem is, I don't think Charleston folks on a weeknight will come to Jacksonville, and I don't think Jacksonville folks, Kings Bay folks on a weeknight will drive up to Charleston. And I thought maybe Savannah meeting in the middle, but it's a solid hour each way. It's about 2 hours between Jax and Charleston, maybe even creeping up on 3. So I'm thinking of going to my companies and say, I think this will work. The cost will be nominal if we do one night in Charleston and one night in Jacksonville, and line up 10 to 12 companies the first year. Maybe have Dan Faraday come to talk business school, or Andrew Kahn to be kind of like the token business school rep there, and and see how that works, because there's some of the Charleston folks are coming up to the DC job fair, but not a ton, 2 or 3 tops. And then in Jacksonville, very few from the Kings Bay Nukes are getting to the DC Career Fair. So I think if we go there, we get 40 or 50 from Kings Bay, we get 30 to 40 in Charleston, and answer lots of questions, encourage a lot of networking, and the companies that would want to come would be thrilled if they had the ability to give up 2 nights. So then it makes you think of the schedule. When do you do that? Do you do it in the spring if we're doing the career fair in August and November? Do you do a March one? The other problem is the Service Academy is now doing a career fair in Jacksonville in March, which is good for the Naval Academy nukes in Kings Bay, but that's only like a third or 40% of the nukes in Kings Bay, so the rest of them don't get to go to that. So I could conceivably reach out to the Naval Academy lady and see if she'd want to combine, or maybe they have theirs on a Friday. I have our Jacksonville one on a Thursday, and we do the Charleston one on a Wednesday. Or we just flip flop the whole calendar. We go to, we do the Seattle Power Conference in March, and then we do the Jacksonville one in November, just to avoid the Service Academy because I don't want to really upset them. So that's the thought. If any of you guys have any suggestions, I just, and to honestly, can I pull that off by 2020? I totally can pull it off by 2020, but the meetup schedule will kind of have to get shifted. So there's a lot of discussions, but give me your feedback as far as what you think about that, and if any of you would be. I know Chris Whitley wants to have one in New York City, have a New York City finance related nuke career fair, which I think is a great idea. I just don't know how I would necessarily pull it off. I mean, I know how we could pull it off, somehow combining the New London nukes and, but yeah, so there's ideas out there, but I think the one that I'm going to lean towards right now is especially Kings Bay and Charleston, because the Charleston folks, you'd get some senior nuke and senior enlisted as well. That would be very well received. They actually had me come speak at Power School for the first time ever, which was very humbling. Being invited to go speak in the Rickover building there, and so that's kind of where I'm at now. So, but sorry to take up a lot of your time here, guys, and thank you for listening and supporting, and hopefully you're enjoying a cocktail while this is wrapping up. But if you have any questions, get in touch with me, and thank you for your time.